So if you haven't seen yet today, guys, we have something very funky, very new, very interesting in the market, specifically the Awakening Shop. And here you will find a Solcadens Soulstone. This essentially is a legendary polished Soulstone. It is just exclusive to Solcadens. So let's see how much it costs. Oh, a meager 6,000 legendary awakening tokens. These guys over here are hard to come by. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, guys, please do that. They drop like 5 at a time, not 500, like 5 from certain guild boss chests. So it almost never happens, or you can get them from the main way you get them, how the devs want you to get them. The only real way to get them, and that is by crunching your legendary heroes. So every time you dismiss a legendary hero, if you go to your heroes screen, you click on your little sell button, let's say I wanted to get rid of this hex over here, you get 100 awakening tokens. So that one hex is gonna net me 100 awakening tokens. So we can do a little math together. This Solcadens Soulstone costs a teeny tiny 6,000 gold tokens. That would be 60 legendary heroes you would have to dismiss. And I do not believe you have to think too hard about it to realize that is a ton. 60 legendary heroes you're throwing away to get one dupe, not a base copy, just one dupe of Solcadens. Now, I'm gonna try to have a pretty nuanced opinion on this for a couple reasons, but namely, if they were gonna do this, they could not make this accessible. Now, when you hear me say that, I think I know what you're thinking, and it is, well, why not? Why can't they make it accessible? And frankly, if the cost was reasonable, let's call it 1,000, I think that would be like the lower end of reasonable. That would be quite player friendly. It would be so low that everyone would get it, everyone that could get it. However, not everyone could get it, but there would be a really, really large portion of people that could and a really large portion of people that couldn't. And it would be a really strong underlining and accentuation of the haves and have-nots in Watcher of Realms, because that would be a real moment in which they're eliminating a key portion of RNG tied to the game. Now, whether you appreciate that RNG or not is a story for another day, but it is core to how this game works. And if we were to make it that, you know, this was very, very easy to get, I think it would have a negative consequence. That being said, they have gone the total opposite direction, and this is unattainable for so many people. We have so much to discuss on the subject. However, before we do, please indulge me, a quick word from our sponsor. So guys, Iron Man is back from the dead. You can get your own copy of Zombie Iron Man today. It's all part of a big Halloween event in Marvel Strikeforce. Before we jump in, huge thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Marvel Strikeforce is a free squad RPG available on all mobile devices. You can download it right now using my link in the description, or just scan the QR code right above me. In this game, you will build a team of Marvel heroes and villains like Iron Man, Wolverine, and Venom. You will take on massive threats like Doctor Doom and Apocalypse, and then of course, you're gonna level up your roster, unlock gear, and also battle fellow players in modes like Arena and the huge Alliance Wars. In MSF, team synergy is everything. There are a lot of in-game mechanics that lead to deeper strategies. For example, pairing characters from the same faction is going to boost their power. And on the whole, you're going to find that this game is just a lot deeper and more interesting than your typical mobile game. So right now is the perfect time to start playing. Use promo code Halloween to unlock your free zombie Iron Man. He's going to be part of the Undying team, which is dominating the Alliance Wars. That squad is going to include units like Zombie Juggernaut, Scarlet Witch, Hela, and the new Zombie Kestrel. It's a limited time Halloween event, so you don't want to miss it. Hop in now. Be sure to download Marvel Strikeforce using my link in the description, or just scan that QR code right above my head. And do not forget, once you're in there, to use that promo code Halloween and get your Zombie Iron Man immediately. Thank you, Marvel Strikeforce, for sponsoring today's video. Alrighty, folks, so let's pick up right where we left off and let's discuss this price tag, because this is truly immense. I mean, they also I wonder if they did this strategically or not. I would guess not. I think this was a mistake, but maybe there's a strategy, and I can speak to that in a second. But they chose to release this new system, which, by the way, if we zoom out, the new system is every other week we're going to get another legendary Soulstone. So we always have the 2 legendary Soulstones every week for 2 specific heroes. So this week it is Elwyn and Seraphina. However, now every other week, we're going to get a special Soulstone as well. So this is the inaugural one, and it is Solcadens. And you can see this only lasts a week, right? So a little less than 6.5 days are remaining, and then Solcaden Stone will go poof. We'll get 2 new legendary hero Soulstones, so 2 non-lords like we're used to, and there'll be no 3rd one next week. The week after, though, there's going to be another legendary Soulstone, and I can guarantee you it is going to be something funky. So before we get into predictions on that, let's talk about why this was very interesting timing. For a lot of people, myself included, Elwyn has been the most anticipated stone through many rounds. You can see here, this is a fun fact about my account and me. I've never pulled Elwyn, ever. Now, how do I have Elwyn? Well, way back when I first beat Gear Raid 1, 2, and 3, stage 18, and I got my random legendary, I got Elwyn. And then I've got her A2 because 2 separate times I have picked up her Awakening Stone from the market because her A3 is so good and because Elwyn's so special. So now it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people are in a similar boat to me that they choose to unveil this new system where you can get legendary hero Soulstones and potentially a lot of other Soulstones we'll talk about in a minute with this currency. And they release that system the day that Elwyn's Soulstone returns. She has not had her Soulstone here for many months. And here it is. And I will tell you, I'm still getting that thing. I want that A3. However, for a lot of you, this might have caught you off guard. You didn't expect this. I certainly didn't expect this. And you may not want to get that Soulstone. And I think there's some good reason to that, but there's also some not. So let's talk about the strategic thing I mentioned very briefly, and then let's talk about the bigger picture and what hero Soulstone could be taking Solcaden's spot in 2 weeks' time, and then who could come 2 weeks after that, and so on and so on. What are the trends we might anticipate seeing? So the reason I think this might be strategic is they might want to just get a little last bit of milking, right? Because a lot of people probably are waiting on Elwyn, but then they see this and they might decide, you know what? I'm just going to save for 2 years until I have 6,000 and I can get something crazy. So I'm going to skip the Elwyn. But I think they're hoping those people see the Elwyn and they can't help themselves. They do what I did, but then maybe they regret it, and then maybe they spend, and then maybe they pull, and you know how it goes. Gotcha. Now, let's dive into the nitty-gritty. What is this? Who can get this? 6,000 Legendary Awakening tokens. Well, for perspective, I probably have gotten, this is very hard to pinpoint, but I would say in the history of my account, I would guess I've probably gotten 4,000, something like that. But I'm someone who has pulled over 30,000 times, and the vast majority of my pulls, the vast majority, have not been ancient summons. I don't get many of those, but because I get my content creator diamonds, functionally, when it comes to pulling on these kind of banners, I am a whale, and this is what it looks like, right? I'm coming up on 32,000. So there's a touch of perspective, huh? I certainly do not think I've dismissed 60 legendary heroes in the history of my account. I can think of all the Soulstones I bought. I bought a Hex Soulstone. I bought 3 Elwyn Soulstones. I bought an Aelin Soulstone. So that's 5, right? So that'd be 2,000 tokens. There might be 1, maybe 2 others. I bought a Comet one, so that's 2,400. At certain points back in the day, I think I would have picked up a cheeky ancient summon here and there during a desperate session, so that'd be 50. Maybe I've done that 4 times, call it 200. So now I'm up to 2,600. I've definitely bought the Mythic Essence at least twice. I think they sell that every other week or every 3rd week. I think it's every other week. For 200, I think I've bought that twice, maybe 3 times. Let's call it 3. That'd be another 600. So now we're at like 32. So I think I've definitely earned less than 4,000, probably closer to 3,000, but not nothing. So I'm only talking about myself just to give you perspective. Here I am, a person who's coming up on 32,000 summons, almost none of them on the Ancient Banner, which is relevant because I'm pulling the normal common units who you would want to sell, right? Sure, some people would sell like a Giselle. I think that'd be a mistake unless you had her A5, but you get what I'm saying. For example, I've pulled Boreas 13 times, right? I've pulled Boreas an ungodly amount of times. I'm working on my 3rd copy, if that was a thing, if I could have A5'd the first 2, because I pulled 6 copies 2 times over. You get it. So with all that being said, I wouldn't even be close if I had never used a single Awakening token to getting this. So who is this for? like the real whales, the people we call krakens. I don't think you'd mind me saying this, my good friend Waxpaw. People who sit down for a session and in one go, in one session, pull 10, 20, heck, maybe 30 legendaries that they're going to dismiss. 30's pushing it, but if you didn't catch my last video, there were at least 30 in there that he went off to dismiss. That's who it's mostly for. I will say there's one slightly player-friendly thing, but it's so long-term it's hard to get excited about, and that's going to be, this could be something to work towards for people who are in this game for the long haul. Because even though it might sound crazy that I've only, it is a ton, but I've only gotten between 3 and 4K legendary tokens in the history of my account through 808 days. Crazy, we're past 800 days now. I've been playing well over 2 years, almost since global launch. Just a few weeks after that, if you actually put into perspective, a huge portion of that time was getting awakenings onto my heroes, right? I play the game very strictly where I will never dismiss a hero unless I already have them A5. So even if the hero's not too interesting, let's try to find someone who's not the most desirable. Like, let's say I pulled an A1 Celine, whereas some people might want to dismiss that. I would definitely awaken her. And I don't awaken people. Same with Absent over here, or Azor. I don't awaken anyone until I have them A5. So if you get more aggressive with it, which I think some people will do after seeing this, you could get a lot more tokens a lot faster. And the other reason I'm talking about being a completionist, even if you're like me, the longer you play the game, the more and more A5 units you're going to have, and the more times you're going to pull dupes of them. Even a few months ago, it was very rare I'd have a session in which I had someone to sell off. Now, it's almost impossible I'd do a session assuming I pull at least like 4 or 5 legendaries, which is kind of the standard. I'm probably usually pulling between 5 and 10 legendaries. If it's a banner I like, I'm going to get at least one that I'm going to sell. Sometimes it's all units that I'm going to sell. Very rare, but I had one time where I pulled like five units. I already had A5 that I dismissed, right? And people that are bigger spenders or people that have been playing longer or have different kinds of luck, it could be more and more and more. So I mentioned all this to say it's not strictly unattainable for everyone. However, I think for anyone that's not a huge whale or kraken, in the short term, it is unattainable. I guess the singular exception would be if you had been a very big spender for a very long time, but not a kraken level, but you just had been solidly spending for a very long time, you might have amassed a really big pile. But on the other side of that coin, or I guess on the other side of that token, they've been encouraging us to spend these. We had no idea this was coming, right? They introduced things like the gear recasting hammers. That's another thing. I'm sure I've bought those a couple times, so it probably is closer to 4,000. A lot of big spenders might buy the legendary skill crystals. If you're just getting started and you're spending a lot, you might have just willy-nilly bought all this stuff. I know a ton of people that really love GVG are always buying this stuff, right? People have always been buying the demon soldiers. So there might be people that used to be huge spenders that don't spend as much anymore, that when they introduce the demon soldier copies here for not just the epic awakening tokens, but also the gold legendary ones, they said, you know what, let's do it. Or let's pick up a mystery demon chest, right? Let me know if that's you. Some of those people, not all of them, could be regretting that now that this has entered the pool of things we can purchase. So there's a lot of layers to this. All in all, I'm trying to be not super negative, but I will say very, very, very directly to you, I wish they didn't introduce this. However, now that they've introduced it, I'm glad they made it really difficult for the vast majority of us to get, because if every other week, a whole chunk of the player base can get something unbelievably overpowered and the other chunk of the player base just sits and stares, that will drive a rift into the game. Perhaps this already will, but I think because they put it at such a high price point, it will manage player-to-player power creep in a fairly okay way. Another potentially treacherous thing that's going to come with this new enticing reward in the Awakening Shop is a lot of players are going to feel like the game's encouraging them to crunch legendaries they're not using or don't like, or they currently perceive as weak. Maybe they currently are weak. But we have seen a ton, even over the past year, legendaries that freaking sucked getting enormous glow-ups. Think of Beatrix and Kai, now Zealous completely dominating some of the harder content in the game. These are units that people totally would be crunching right now, or a lot of people would consider crunching with this alluring Soulstone in the shop. And very likely there are going to be a lot of future Beatrixes and Zealouses and Kais, right? I mean, one of the things the devs have continued to do exceptionally well is put in the effort to rework, rebalance, and buff old lame legendaries. So if you're too enticed by this and you go and start crunching legendaries you don't already have at A5, and you don't at least save one copy, crunching that Cratch or Azor or Absent or Alora, whomever it may be, might be something you grow to immensely regret. And yes, I threw Alora in there. I couldn't help myself. But you understand what I'm saying. I am worried that this is going to encourage potential behaviors in players that they're going to regret just a few months later. Now, before we go to the really big thing, speculating who the other heroes that could take Solcadens' spot every other week, who they could be, I want to talk about one thing that is goofy, and I think someone should make a Discord suggestion, and then we can have a bunch of people like it. It's not fair if they're going to do this to a lot of players, especially the big spenders they're trying to entice with this. It's not fair if you have a normal legendary be dismissed for the same amount of tokens as a legendary lord, right? Like, so let's say it is a huge spender and they've got like an A5 Araka and they go to dismiss her. It's not fair that that's going to be the same as dismissing a Cratch, right? So I think that would be a nice response, at least for those big guys. Like, okay, here you go. From my last session, I have a Fasti that I can dismiss. So there's an example. I can also go to the bottom here, and I've been saving an extra Twin Fiend forever, and you can see that's still just another 200. Sorry that disappeared behind me, but I'll pop it back in again. Look at that. It's only 100, right? I say 200 because I had the 100 from Fasti. And now if I wanted to also dismiss Twin Fiend, which I don't, that would be Twin Fiend. But I think they need to do something. Like, if make a legendary lord when you dismiss them, make that 250 at least. I would say like 300 or 400 would be fair. Yes, it's catering towards the whales and the krakens, but that's already what this is. So I think maybe make it a bit more fair to them. You know, a lot of the people that might want this Solcadens Soulstone, for example, the most are going to be people that have pulled a lot on Ancient Banners and have had terrible luck, so they never got his A1, and people that have pulled that much and never got him, and they're like, okay, I'm going to spend 60 dismissed legendaries worth of currency to go get this one singular awakening. Those people probably pulled a lot of trash along the way. You know, so those people probably have like the A5 Hearts and the A5 Araka and the A5 Venoma and Twin Fiend and so on and so on. I think it would be friendly to players like that to give a lot more coins, just so there's like a little more of a silver lining. So that's the final thing I wanted to say before the big question. Who's going to take his spot? Well, with this one stone, they've told us a lot. This is not a King Heart stone. This is not a Leia stone. This is not a Torador stone. Solcadens is one of the strongest ancient exclusive legendary lords in the game. He's about as rare as it's going to get, and they're saying, hey, this is possible. And frankly, if this is possible, it guarantees that Cyrus, Nastia, Yovar, so on and so on, all of that is possible. And frankly, in my opinion, I think it confirms that Ingrid, Praetus, Valderon, that's all possible too. Another thing to consider is this is going to be on an every other week cycle. To me, that feels like twice a month. To me, that feels like it's going to change on a monthly cycle. So maybe it's 1 week, like here, Solcadens, a legendary Lord Soulstone, an ancient exclusive legendary Lord Soulstone. What's going to be in 2 weeks? Is it going to be a Valara Soulstone? I could see that. I can't imagine it'd be 6,000, but I've heard rumors that people are thinking there's going to be a 3,000 token Soulstone. Could that be Valara? Could they do a Diao Chan for 3,000? Could they do a Kagiri for 4,000? Could they do a Sun Wukong for 2,000? Moradin for 3,000? You can start spiraling out when you think about it, right? But I do think it's possible. If they're doing it every other week, so twice every 4 weeks, I could see a 4-week cycle where we have 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on, 1 week off, where it goes like Solcadens off week, Valara off week, Yovar off week, Moradin off week, Cyrus off week, Diao Chan off week, and then all of a sudden Ingrid. And then someone had just bought the Cyrus one, and now it's Ingrid, and blah, 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 you know? So yeah, there's gonna be all these levels of FOMO and what's coming next and this, that, and the other. I think a lot of people don't need to engage with this. I'll say now that I got my A3 Elo, and this is what I'd been waiting on forever, I'll probably try to stockpile. You know, today is October the 20th. Maybe I'll check in on January 20th, 3 months from now, and we can see how many tokens I have. I'm obviously not a normal player though. Like functionally, I am definitely a whale. I'm also endgame. I'm also hyper active in this game. So yeah, I can totally see why this is pissing off a lot of people. I think it's disappointing to see, but I do think, believe it or not, the ridiculously high price point is probably better, not worse for the game. All in all, I think this is nuanced. I think it's weird. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts about it. So let me know in the comment section below. I've been Fastidious. Thank you for watching. Share with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.